a 3-round rookie Superflex tight end premium draft here at Establish the Edge. As always, I'm your host, John Daigle, joined today by friends of the show who have joined throughout the pre-draft process. First up, Theo Gremminger from Fantasy Points, Rich Hribar from Sharp Football, and then, of course, legendary Upside Zone, Pat Kerrane. The rough draft here is that we are going to alternate picks through 3 rounds, and we'll get into the details of trades and what we're thinking about how to handle rookie drafts in general, especially since most will be happening this weekend as we move on. But, Theo, we are going to start with you and the most obvious 101 of 2026 rookie drafts.
Yeah, it's Jeremiah Love easily at the 101. I've seen a couple of Galaxy Brain takes out there on X saying that you actually have to lean into the quarterback, and it's as clear as it's ever been. He's also the only player that we're ranking extremely highly among his own position. I have Jeremiah Love at the running back 3 or the running back 4 range. If you want to have an argument over Genty versus Love, I think that's fine. And I think there's a lot of pressure on Arizona to justify using the number 3 overall pick. So some of the doom and gloom takes out there that James Conner and Tyler Algier are actually going to cut into the workload. I think that it's going to end up being a ton of Jeremiah Love, and I actually think he's going to catch a lot of passes too. So I love the value, and I actually love the value for Love in all formats. I think he's coming in early best balls. I think he's an appealing click. I think redraft he's going to be a good one, but for Dynasty he's a foundational pick. So love getting him here at the 101.
That's actually where I want to spin this conversation off quickly, Kerrane, is that having dived into best ball drafts right now, Love is at the 2nd, 3rd round turn. And I know you just put up your best ball rankings at Legendary Upside. How do you feel about that? Because I genuinely thought he was going to open in the back of the 1st, 2nd round with guys like James Cook and Devon Achane, because personally I would take Jeremiah Love over Devon Achane, but it's not even like the same tier if you're just based solely on drafting an ADP right now.
I think he would have opened there if he'd gone to like the Commanders, because, you know, then everyone would be really excited. I think from a talent perspective, you know, that's kind of where he belongs. But then, of course, you do have in best ball, like, he might not hit, you know, the apex of what he's doing in terms of, you know, the volume until the end of his rookie season, right? Maybe even not even until year 2 or year 3. So I understand wanting a little bit of a discount compared to, you know, like the Saquon Barkley, James Cook kind of guys up there at the 1-2 turn. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I'm pretty into him in the 3rd round. I don't think he's like an absolute smash there, because I do think the Cardinals are, you know, potentially going to be pretty bad for his ability to put up touchdowns and just consistently turn in high-scoring weeks. And I do think Algier will probably steal some touchdowns, because he was doing that to Bijan. So, like, I don't know. It's probably going to be a little bit of a headache. Reeves, I was joking that on Angles and Upside next year, we're going to, like, in week 13, you're going to, like, hit me with a stat that it's been 6 weeks since Love has had a touch inside the
10. Yeah, touch inside the 10-yard line.
Don't say it. Yeah. Don't say it.
So I'm a little nervous from that perspective, but I do think he's a target now in the early 3rd.
Angles and Upside, my favorite 7-hour episodic series per week.
Hey, we kept it
Absolutely.
short.
102, Kerrane, coming back to you, and I think this is where it gets interesting. We, again, are doing Superflex tight end premium format, but this is where we start the discussion of what would you do, well, not only in Superflex, but in a single quarterback league as well.
Yeah, so I would, this will kind of answer the question for both, because I'm not taking Fernando Mendoza, so this would also be my pick in a single quarterback league. I am taking Carnell Tate. I have him as the wide receiver 1. I had him as the wide receiver 1 pre-draft. I have him as the wide receiver 1 post-draft. He did go first in the draft. I know Jordan Tyson is the wide receiver 1 for a lot of people. Tate's still my guy. He's, to me, like, you know, Reeves, before we went live, was clowning this clowning the concept of rookie classes generally. But
yeah,
you said, what's the difference between him and Rome Odunze? Like, I don't. There might not be a huge difference, but the difference might be, like, he's, like, a little better. And Rome Odunze is a starting outside wide receiver from, like, day one, who gets downfield targets. And so, like, he's somewhere on that spectrum. I think like it's possible he's Romeo Dobbs, which would not be very fun, but I think, it's also possible he's on the higher end of this archetype. He's probably like, most likely, he's kind of in that Chris Olave level guy where like he would be an incredible number 2 receiver. He's not an elite wide receiver 1, but he's good. And he's been kind of cast in that sort of situation where he's going to be, maybe ultimately he's like a T. Higgins where he's the wide receiver 1 for a year and then they bring in a guy who's even better the following year. But for now, we're looking at him as the clear-cut wide receiver 1 on his team. And this guy, like everything he does well fits exactly with what he's going to be asked to do in the NFL. He's going to play outside. He's going to win downfield 10-plus yard targets. That's where basically all of his production was. He wasn't schemed up stuff. He wasn't, producing on really short targets. It was 10 to 19 yard targets and 20-plus yard targets combined to make up 70% of his total yards in college. He was a great route runner per Matt Harmon's charting. I think the junior season that we just saw from him, which then he came out and was drafted 4th overall. He had a 30% dominator rating and 3.03 yards per route run. So he's not an elite prospect even as the 4th overall pick, but to me, I'm just like, this guy's going to be good. It's possible he's like a little less good than we would prefer, but I'm just going to like kind of like bank, at least a small hit, I think, in Carnell Tate.
Any extended thoughts there, Rich, as you move into 103? For instance, I was looking last night at my picks since most of my drafts begin Saturday, and there is one league where I've sinned along the way, and I have like Daniel Jones and Tua as my Superflex quarterbacks. And in that case, I'm going to go, I know already, Mendoza at 102 over the wide receivers. But your thoughts as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think the 2 players that stand out as where you're going to have league variance is Mendoza and Jadarian Price, just when you're on the clock. Because if you have a quarterback room that you feel comfortable with, you're not excited to click a guy that maybe is like in the Jared Goff, like high QB2 zone, right? As like a ceiling outcome. So then if you have that pick and you have a good quarterback room, you want to go knock on the door of like, who are the teams in your league that need Fernando Mendoza? Can you get off of this pick? Can you move down a little bit? Can you get a veteran that you maybe are bullish on? Those are the things that we can't cover here, right? Like that's going to be league-to-league variance. And the same thing with Jadarian Price. If you have a strong running back room and you don't need immediate running back production, you might shop that pick to the team in your league that needs immediate running back production. And that's how you would play those situations. We can't cover all those angles here. So with that said, I mean, I think the way things shaked out with the wide receivers this year is we kind of have like groups of 2, right? Like you kind of have the Tyson Tate grouping, then you have Concepcion and Lemon as like another group of 2, then you kind of have Boston and Cooper as a group of 2 as well, and then it kind of opens up. So it's like it just kind of moves in like sections of 2. And I don't really have a pushback like if you like Tate more than Tyson, if you like Lemon more than Concepcion, if you like Cooper more than Boston, like we're splitting hairs largely with those, but that's kind of how it's shaken out in all the drafts that I've done so far. So this is the same thing with me being on the clock. If you don't need Mendoza, you go shop this pick to a team that needs Mendoza, see what you can work out for the sake of just having fun and picking players I think would be more fun to have here. I'll take Jordan Tyson, who lands in a pretty good spot, I think, for him to not have to be the alpha. He's the guy that out of these wide receivers at the top did play all 3 wide receiver positions in college. He's going to a Kellen Moore system that moves all his wide receivers around and plays indoors on a team that's going to run with a really high tempo, run a lot of plays. He's going to run a lot of routes. So I feel pretty comfortable here with Tyson. Model loves Tyson as well. So I'll just take him. We'll keep this train moving.
Tyson also has the benefit of as you mentioned, the Kellen Moore offense that already elevated guys like Rashid Shaheed and Devon Vele to fantasy success. Moving on to the 104 then, since this is a Superflex league, I don't have them. I previously had Mai Lemon not only ahead of Jordan Tyson and Carnell Tate pre-draft, but then I think not just the landing spot, but the fact that Eli Sters, who we'll talk about probably later in the first round, also landed in Philadelphia with Mai Lemon certainly makes me move Lemon down a tier behind Mendoza. So I'm going to go Fernando Mendoza here. And again, as I talked about, I would happily take him at 102 as well, since we still have some question marks about the wide receivers, Tate and Tyson. Theo, we are back to you at 105.
Yeah, so the 105 becomes interesting. And John, you came on Dynasty Life with me, and we discussed Mai Lemon. I've been kind of battling for Mai Lemon, I feel like, on several podcasts this week, where a lot of people have moved KC Concepcion up, and I think in a lot of leagues like the FFPC, you're going to see Jadarian Price go in this hole because people are always chasing running back. But for me, Mai Lemon, it's getting a little too beat up in terms of Jalen Hurts can't pass over the middle. This is not going to work out. It's a poor fit. I think Mai Lemon, they have a plan for him. I think that they took him at 20 overall, that this is an important pick for them to get right. And he has the ability to step in with A.J. Brown being shipped off most likely on June 1st. So for me, I think I'm going to stick with my pre-draft evaluation. And we have a chance to do this earlier in the year where Pat and John and I, we drafted, and we talked about, like, John, you were taking Mai Lemon then at like the 102, the 103. Mm-hmm. We don't have to make that decision anymore. We're able to get him at the 105, 106 range. And in that range, I think he becomes a major value. So Mai Lemon for me, still at the 105, but I think we'll see leagues where he falls to the 107.
I still have him over Mendoza. I think he's a really good prospect. Like, he was a first round receiver, like, I know he fell a little bit further than people thought, but like, not, I don't know, he like was expect to go around 12. He goes like 20. Like, it's not a huge deal.
Right.
I feel like he's been sufficiently punished for being really weird at the combine. We don't have to like count it again. The NFL counted it for us. So, Mai Lemon, like, he produces short, he produces deep too. I think he's a pretty interesting player. I think he's got kind of that versatility where, like, he's probably a slot primarily, but he can potentially also play outside and also win downfield, which is a really high ceiling fantasy archetype right now. So yeah, I'm still very into Mai Lemon. He's also like, he's in the 7th round in best ball right now, and I think it's pretty easy to see how he pays that off. That's like that Brian Thomas Ladd McConkey price from a couple years ago, where it's like, oh, that was wrong. So I'm into that too.
And Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni both said the same things you're saying, Pat, and they both specifically said how good he is with the ball in his hands. They talked about the versatility. So I think they have a plan for him, and it's also just such a tough player, and it's just the sort of player that I think NFL head coaches gravitate towards and offensive coordinators clearly have wanted to target. So I think Mai Lemon at this point kind of becomes a value. So I'm happy to get him there.
There is, if I'm stepping away from like my confidence and hubris and Lemon's profile, my only concern again is that Stowers works in the same kind of area that Lemon does. So although they used the 1st round pick on him, and I'm not personally too concerned about them being the same player, there is a little bit of overlap there. Having said that, in 2027, given that the Eagles already had to restructure Dallas Goedert's contract to bring him back, A.J. Brown is 99% of the way gone from this team as well in the next 2 months. So I believe that it's going to be Lemon in 2 wide receiver sets. Dontavian Wicks is his only competition. Kerrane, we are to you at 106.
Yeah, I'm kind of holding strong a little bit on like the talent eval versus the landing spot, and I am going to go KC Concepcion. I assume, especially like in shallower leagues like the FFPC, as you mentioned, I would expect to see Jadarian Price go here, and I might even consider it, specifically for FFPC, where running back and like just the ability to hold guys for a long time is curtailed. So, but in a normal kind of Superflex tight end premium style dynasty league that's deep and you're rewarded for having flex depth, I'm going to go with Concepcion, who I don't think is on the same level as Lemon. I have Lemon a tier up, but I do think Concepcion's a tier up from Omar Cooper, my next wide receiver. So kind of in a tier of his own in this class. I have him as like a late 1st round rookie pick tier guy, which, we're at the 106. We're already to the late first, but he's the only late first I got left. So, this class thins out quick. But, a third-year breakout guy. He had a really strong freshman season that was a little gadgety, but then he has a really strong junior season that wasn't very gadgety at all. And so I think there's upside where he can kind of be like a maybe a Jaden Reed who plays all the time, where he gets a little of that, like, oh, they're doing some design stuff for him, but then he's actually, able to play outside and inside. And so you have this pretty fantasy PPR friendly fantasy skill set. With not a ton of target competition, a wide receiver now, even with Boston there. He can probably emerge as their clear-cut wide receiver 1, by like week 10.
Denzel Boston, according to ESPN, which is David Boston's son. Rich, do you have any thoughts on Concepcion?
Do you see that they had to issue an apology during the draft?
Pretty sloppy. Do you have any thoughts, Rich, on Concepcion into the Browns offense, given that when we saw him with North Carolina State's offense, he was a different player. I believe it was just the run heavy scheme they had, and Texas A&M and a better quarterback then opened him up. But is there any concern that perhaps the offense will drown out Concepcion's ceiling?
No, not really. Because remember that sophomore year, the NC State brought in Grayson McCall, and he had 3 concussions the first 2 weeks of the season, and then they had to turn things over and kind of change their offense on the fly, and that's kind of what happened to that offense during the season. So kind of a little bit of a hall pass for that second year and just what happened to that offense. But he's going into a Todd Monken offense right away where he's going to run a ton of routes, have a ton of target opportunity. Monken obviously worked with a similar player like Zay Flowers. He was a popular comp for Concepcion. Like Flowers, I think probably your only bugaboo is probably just touchdown equity, right? Especially with them bringing in Boston. I think Boston right away probably factors in to be their number 1 red zone target next year. Boston's going to be a guy that probably catches 45 passes as a rookie, but leads the team in receiving touchdowns, and we're all mad at him. We're all going to be pissed off.
Did you just describe Isaac Tesla?
Yeah, not quite the Tesla where he has eight catches and 6 touchdowns.
higher target volume Tesla.
Yeah. But that's really the only rub, I think, is just the touchdown equity you get. But that's where we are at this point of the draft anyways. I think that he's a really solid pick. I could see him outscoring a guy like Lemon early on. I like Lemon better as a complete player, but I could see just him running 200 more routes than Lemon this year, as a rookie, exists in the range of outcomes. So he'll probably be a popular, I think, redraft target for me out of the rookie guys that go in that range, just based on just the amount of volume that he has potential to run. And he, I think, can survive with the types of targets he'll get in the Monken offense, no matter what shakes out at quarterback. Probably outside of if Taylor Green plays. Taylor Green's the one wild card where it's just I don't know if this dude plays, I don't know what's going to happen to the offense.
Passing volume could be super low.
Yeah. But I think he survives the Watson, Shador, Gabriel stuff because of where he earns in his targets if they do turn to those guys.
Well, after that, we are back to you with the 107.
Yeah, I think in this spot, if we're just doing tight end premium, I'm treating it more like FFPC. I'm just going to take Sadiq and play for the format here. He's probably not going to lose a ton of value. He was a first round pick, super athletic. They chose him over Omar Cooper. He plays the wide receiver one that can open things up. The top down stuff doesn't look great for Sadiq. He's in that more of that Noah Fant type range. You see him comp to Fant a lot, but I mean, he was tracking though before his injury to push the really elite production for tight ends. And when he had that injury, his production just kind of fell off of a cliff. His ADOT died. That's when you see Jamari Johnson start to run those vertical seam routes. So I think a lot of people are knocking him for his in-season injuries. It really never gets brought up either. Everyone brought up Ty Simpson's injuries, and no one talked about Sadiq. Literally had 3 different injuries that Dan Lanning was he's so injured that I'm not even going to tell you what his injuries were. That's basically what he said. He's just hurt all over. And then like I said, his ADOT literally lost 3 yards of depth of target after that injury. So I'm not really worried about the landing spot big picture because we kind of overvalue and undervalue these things in Dynasty. I think it's to be fluid. I think Geno Smith's capable as a bridge guy anyways, to get him facilitate targets. So with tight end premium, I'm just going to swallow the first round capital. Again, I'll let Theo, have Jadarian Price because it's his thing. But again, like this is such a Jadarian Price is such a red flag on my end. Like we've chased these running backs at Capital. He passed CEH for the lowest round 1 grade running back in my model. I just don't want to chase the pick 32 for a player I don't believe in.
Well, this is my pick up next at 108. And not only for the sake of conversation, I'm still going to take Jadarian Price here because this is where I have him tiered, if only for the draft capital. But I think it gives a better question, Rich, that if you are avoiding Price in this range, that means, one, you're just not going to have him because he's not going to get past like 110, for example. But then also,
if I needed running back points, like if I need running back points immediately, he's fine. Like
what are you doing? Problem. What are you doing instead then for anyone who doesn't need running back points after Sadiq? If you're not going Price,
I'm finding the team that needs immediate running back points, and I'm seeing, can I get a DJ Moore? Can I get a Theo talked about getting Terry McLaurin in one of his leagues? Like those types of veteran players that I think that can help my roster immediately. That typically maybe wouldn't go for one of those picks, but I think in this particular draft class they. Like, I have no problem giving up the 108 for DJ Moore.
You're not using the Jimmy Johnson chart in this draft class. You're just
basically that.
Yeah. You
and we're in the zone anyways, where I brought up before the show. Like, we're in a zone where like these picks, even in good draft classes, have been terrible picks. So like, you just go back to. At this point, just like 2 years ago, we were taking guys in this range, Keon Coleman, Trey Benson, Blake Corum, Jalen Wright. The year before that, we're taking Zach Charbonnet, Kendre Miller, Bryce Young, Quentin Johnston. The year before that, we were taking Sky Moore, Jahan Dotson, Damian Pierce. Like, even in better draft classes, or people that felt more comfortable about, like, these are bad. Like, this is a bad strike zone to be in, anyways.
Theo,
I think that I think that Price, like Rich, it feels like we've been kind of talking about him for like 2 months, and I was obviously team Price for a long time. I love the landing spot, and I think that his 2026 outlook is a little bit underrated with Zach Charbonnet missing. We don't even know how many games, so I think Price could actually get off to a really, really fast start, and a couple of the players that we're going to be taking in this similar range could get off to really slow starts, like. Kenyon Sadiq could take a major hit. Even though I like what you did with Sadiq there, I think Price, it's just like this clear Kenneth Walker role. And the competition for touches is Emmanuel Wilson and George Halani, unlike last year where Walker was competing with a guy like Zach Charbonnet. So Jadarian Price, he's got the home run hitting ability. I'll sort of continue to die on this hill. I'm going to have him a little bit higher in my Dynasty running back rankings than I think a lot of people are. But obviously he hit the nuts on the landing spot, and I think it's a fine pick if you're sitting there at like the 7. I'm not taking him over Concepcion. I'm not taking him over, certainly not taking over Mai Lemon. But I think if you want to take him at like the 107, he's kind of a saving grace for that pick.
That's actually where I have him. I have him at 107, and I think he's fine there. Like he's not.
Yeah.
Like I also have him as the worst first round pick in my model at running back, but like. He's a first round pick, there's like, it's still like first round picks do like, are pretty solid bets at running back. So it's not something I want to like. The other thing too, is that nothing's going to change, from now really until the beginning of the season. Like he's going to be the projected.
Well, we did this with RJ Harvey last year. At this point, RJ Harvey, J.K. Dobbins was not on the roster.
So would it be Najee?
I mean, it could be anyone. The ghost of Joe Mixon if he's back. I don't know. Like, so anyone. It could be a number.
I don't think Joe Mixon is tanking this guy's value. Like,
no. But this is still a 200-pound back that has legitimate. Like, he's the worst pass protection running back in this class, and that was a problem for Kenneth Walker last year. That's why he was coming off the field in those situations. Like, this is a utilitarian size running back. So. I have a hard time.
If you can't work out a deal while you're on the clock and you're kind of in Rich's camp, I think you'll have time post draft to trade him.
Yeah.
As well, like you're right, they could sign like a Najee or a Mixon or something, but I think most likely you'd still have time to kind of shop him and see if anyone warms to him in the next month or two.
Theo, you're on the clock next, but before we get into that, like this is where it brings into the conversation the 108 through the 112. Like Kerrane just mentioned. These picks are movable, like very movable for veterans that can help you win this year. So what are a couple players that you were targeting? And then also afterwards, you can make your 109.
I mean, I've made these trades. I had a 750 Triflex FFPC league, which is classic start 10. You don't have a kicker or defense. It's like a lot of people listening to this are playing these days. And I flipped the 112 for DJ Moore. That was like a week and a half ago. I also flipped a 112 in another 750 FFPC Triflex league for Christian Watson, which I know we sort of bumped heads a little bit on that one, John, but Watson's upside this year I think is really strong. And then I was able to accomplish a couple of trades pre-NFL draft, acquiring David Montgomery for like 2 second-rounders, late seconds. That doesn't exist anymore. I tried the 111. I've tried the 112 for Montgomery on win now teams with really strong rosters. Was rebuffed, but I know you got that deal done. And then 2 days ago in an FFPC 500 single QB league that I won last year, and I have a loaded roster, I traded a 112 for Terry McLaurin straight up, and the other manager sent me a nice note saying this was a fair offer and they enjoyed making it. So, like, there's as much as people want to batter rookie picks this year, there are always going to be fantasy managers and dynasty managers that want access to the new, and they're going to take their chances. And there's also a lot of people who adhere to the age apex, and these 28-year-old running backs, 30-year-old wide receivers, as appealing as they are for this year, there's people who also feel like they got a gift being able to flip those guys into Omar Cooper Jr. So I think the trades are still out there. You just got to be active, and all it takes is one in your league if you don't want to sit and pick at like the 110 through 112 range.
DJ Moore is another one that I know Rich personally has been targeting as well with these selections. But the 109 is now yours. And again, this is where it really falls off the rails and is open to interpretation.
Yeah, 109 is interesting. And I think if you're in a deeper dynasty format that's not FFPC and you have like 30-man benches, I think that Ty Simpson, whether you like the pick or not, makes a lot of sense for the trade equity that he represents and the flexibility you have with your roster, where I'm going to be able to consider him like a 2027 1.5. He's not worth a 2027 first, but I think he's going to be a little bit worth a little more than a 2027 second throughout the entire year. You've got the Jordan Love trajectory right in front of you in a Sean McVay offense. But for this purpose, and I'm sitting and picking in the tight end premium, I'm going to go Eli Sters at the 109 here. Howie Roseman talked about how they've hit on Zach Ertz, they've hit on Dallas Goedert, and they view Eli Sters as the sort of the next one to hit big. And I remember, Pat, you were very into Harold Fannin Jr. last year. Rich, you were very into Harold Fannin Jr. last year. There's some parallels between Eli Sters and Harold Fannin Jr. this year and last year, where we look at him as sort of a 1 year later bet. That was what people were saying with Fannin. Fannin in 2026 is going to be the guy because of David Njoku. This year, it's a Dallas Goedert argument. Eli Sters was a mega target earner in college. Had a 21% target share this year, 25% the year before. He's one of only 3 SEC tight ends to have 60 or more receptions in a season. The other 2 are Evan Engram and Brock Bowers. Very, very athletic. And then if you believe in all the doom and gloom scenarios that we are kind of dispelling with Mai Lemon not fitting in this offense, then Eli Sters has a potential out to be worth more than him maybe in a year in Dynasty. So I think Eli Sters is in a great situation. There's a lot of outs, and I think he's going to be very fantasy friendly. And it's hard for me to see a scenario where we're not ranking Eli Sters as a tight end 1 in Dynasty heading into 2027. And in tight end premium leagues, that's a very valuable asset to hold.
I'd actually compare him more similarly compared to last year's tight end class, actually, to a Rondé Gadsden, where he really is kind of just like a big wide receiver. But like Gadsden was able to also get his way into, being like a true tight end as a rookie in a way that was more surprising to me than Fannin, in part because he was drafted later. But he just pulled this off. And I think Stowers, like, that's the plan. I think the plan is for him to be kind of that big wide receiver who plays kind of like big slot tight end. I think having Goddard there, it's not a bad thing, as he kicks his career off, and then Goddard is a free agent after the year. They could bring him back cheaply again, but he's also getting older. And like even if Goddard leaves, I assume they bring in like a Charlie Kolar type the guy the Chargers just brought in. But that's fine. Like you have Stowers potentially running like 70% of the routes once he like gets up to speed. But if he's got a really high targets per route run, which I think he probably will, you think you're gonna be pretty happy with that. Like almost like a Chigakonkwo in terms of what he's getting to as far as like the route participation when it's there. But I think he's a lot better of a player. So I like this pick.
Rich, your thoughts on Eli Stowers here, given that it still goes ahead of some first-round players like Ty Simpson, Omar Cooper, and then when we get into the beginning of the second round, Jeremy Bernard, Denzel Boston, guys like that.
Yeah, I have no problem with it, especially in these formats. I mean, I was on with Theo on Monday, and one of the driving forces I was trying to drive home was that, in these leagues where you're getting tight end premium, I mean, it's better to take these running back or these tight ends over like the secondary wide receiver tiers, especially if you're in like leagues with huge cutdowns. I mean, just because the way the NFL is moving right now and the upside these guys could have in terms of positional leverage and ceiling versus some of these other guys that are probably going to peter out from a ceiling perspective as maybe wide receiver 2+, but maybe not even that. We're also entering the NFL in an era where wide receiver production has been the lowest it's been in the past 20 years. We're seeing more tight ends used on the field more than ever. It's like, I just don't want to be really bullish on taking guys, like Cooper and, Boston over the Stowers, Sadiq's guys, right? And then when we get into the secondary range, I've brought this up a bunch of times. Like, I'm definitely taking guys like Raritan and Delp and even down the line to like guys like Jack Endries over like these ancillary wide receivers in these secondary tiers too. I mean, especially if you're on an FFPC where you cut down to 16 players every year, like a lot of these guys like Chris Brazzell, like they're going to be like, after year one, you're going to be like, am I cutting Chris Brazzell? Like, right? Like that's going to be like on the table for you, but you might luck box into, a Drake Mays tight end 1 in 2027, right? Like that's way more appealing to me than trying to like thread the needle on Jacoby Lane or Elijah Surratt. Like I want to throw darts and tight end premium on this tight end class, because the day 2 tight ends I think were way more interesting than the day 2 wide receivers.
Kerrane, you are up next at 110.
So I have, it's one thing to say you have guys in the same tier. I have, I just did my overall Dynasty rankings update, got that out last night, and I have Omar Cooper and Eli Stowers literally back to back in the overall Dynasty rankings. So this is about as clear a tier as I have. I'll take Omar Cooper here. I think, Cooper's not actually someone I was like super excited about, but I believe I took him in the draft that we did before the draft too. I thought he was gonna be a first round pick. He was a first round pick. He does some interesting stuff as a yak guy. He also drew targets pretty well, like intermediate targets earlier in his career. And so I'm betting on him to be able to kind of hit the ground running as a professional wide receiver out of the gate. There's targets available for him to do that. If he can, if he can be ahead of AD Mitchell pretty quickly, which I think is a first round pick, he probably will be. So this is a spot where I would be shopping around. You guys mentioned a bunch of really good targets for immediate production. I'd also go see if the guy who has Travis Hunter is sick of that experience, Like,
you can go cheaper.
They are.
You can go cheaper, Pat. You can go cheaper, Pat.
Great. Give me Travis Hunter and a pick. I mean, I think I'd rather honestly have Travis Hunter than this pick. But if I can get a little extra, sure. That again, I'm thinking more like in the deeper leagues as opposed to like we might be a year away from Travis Hunter being on FFPC waiver wire. So it depends a little bit on the depth and how long people can hold guys, but. There's, as far as this is a pick where I don't even think you need to like be specifically looking for immediate production or anything. Like you could say like, hey, is there a upside swing that maybe people have soured on that I can take instead of this? But if I'm sitting and picking, I would take Cooper here.
Any thoughts on the overlap with him and Sadiq, which is my concern? But again, as you said, we're tearing this off. He's still a first-round wide receiver, so you kind of hold your nose and say, that's the last of this crop, so I'll just happily take him.
I don't have a ton of – I mean, The thing, like, is Rich laid out, we're in a range where we're going to see a ton of busts, but like we've also seen, I mean, this is where Justin Jefferson went at this like 111 spot. This is where, you were getting T Higgins in this range. You had Brandon Ayuk down in this range. Like this is a spot where you can still see some big upside. And that's what you're betting on. You're betting on that Omar Cooper is really good. And if he's really good, I'm not really that worried about a tight end, Like it's the same kind of as Casey Concepcion, where I'm a big fan and guy, but if Casey Concepcion's awesome, then the wide receiver is going to lead the team in target share over a tight end, even if both are really good. So it doesn't even have to be that Sadiq's not good. It's just if Cooper is worth this pick, then a tight end is probably not getting in his way in a huge, meaningful way.
Rich, you are next at 111.
Yeah, this is one where, not knowing what you need with Ty Simpson and not knowing the league, like you can have him definitely in play here in a super flex league. But without not knowing when he's going to start, was he actually handpicked by Sean McVay? We will never know the truth of that scenario at this point, because so much damage control's been done and so much fudging of the events of the dead, soulless look in Sean McVay's eyes as he is answering questions after he was picked. So, I mean, obviously he's in play, but without knowing where to get immediate production, adding some immediate points on the roster, I think this is where I would have a firewall at wide receiver with Denzel Boston. I almost call him David Boston now, with Denzel Boston. And I think Boston versus Cooper, pre-draft I had a real tough time ranking them because I thought Boston was a lot better receiver, but Cooper was going to be more valued in the current landscape of the NFL. They ended up being closer together. I thought it was crazy, like when Cooper was like minus 1,200 to go in the first round, and then he almost slipped out of the first round. Probably would have if the Jets didn't just move up a couple more picks to come back up and get him.
There was a story the Bills liked him today that's why they traded up.
Which would have been interesting too, considering what they did with, Skylar Bell and having Shakir. But I think Boston is interesting still because he lands in a depth chart where what if he ends up just being better than Concepcion? He's a rookie wide receiver too. I like Concepcion more, don't get me wrong. But there's probably he's drawing non-zero. Considering he was a top 40 pick. So maybe he's there. You have the touchdown equity too. He probably could come in and just be the initial red zone target on the offense. We're assuming Jerry Jeudy at least is gone at the end of this year, if not before the season. He hasn't shown up to anything this offseason yet either with the new regime. So this would be kind of a firewall, I think, for me at wide receiver. So to keep this thing moving, we'll go Boston.
It's up to me now, and we're already at the point where I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. And again, like you said, if you want a quarterback, Ty Simpson is here. So maybe I just check that off the board for everybody rather than diving into the...
Yeah, you're the host. Take fall on that sword, and we'll keep going.
Yeah, I think that's what we need to do here. All right. Again, you do take Denzel Boston here just because you're going to get points, whereas Ty Simpson, when is he ever going to play in the next 2 years? Probably never. And so... don't like it, but I'll take it.
And in non-super flex, I think this is where you start to consider Mendoza because you're adding points to your roster. You're like, I'm adding points to my roster versus maybe not.
Absolutely. And so, Theo, you're up next to start the second round, and curious what you're doing at the back end here in super flex rookie leagues and also your pick.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. And I think the 201, there's a group of about 4 players I think I would consider. And I think it can be roster dependent. But if I'm chasing points this year specifically in 2026, I think Antonio Williams is probably the best bet. Jeremy Bernard is really, really appealing to me. Jonah Coleman's appealing to me. There's a few other guys like that. But when you look at Antonio Williams, he has such a clear opportunity to step in as the slot guy and also the yak guy for this Washington offense. And his target competition is really bad outside of Terry McLaurin. And in terms of touch competition, they're going to be in some sort of a running back by committee with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt and Rachaad White. How much target volume is Chigakonkwo going to take over? I know there's a lot of optimism for him in that offense, but for me, Williams, there's some pathways here where he is one of the leaders among all rookies in terms of receptions for the season. I think he's good. He was playing alongside other NFL prospects at Clemson. I think there'll be a couple of those guys drafted in the next few drafts as well. So I'm going to Antonio Williams here. Definitely one of the biggest risers for me post-NFL draft because of the landing spot.
Antonio Williams to start here. Kerrane, you were on the clock at 2:02.
Yeah, I've become like a bull for this player, and I don't like that necessarily, but like guys who's the 33rd overall pick in the draft, I'm going to go ahead and take Deshaun Stribling. He's probably not very good. It's probably like Zay Jones, you know. That was one of the comps for me in my model, but it's like he's decent from a yak perspective. He was able to earn targets downfield. He's not like, this isn't like Zachariah Branch as far as, you know, kind of schemed yak. It's like he might be able to add yak on real targets. And then the 49ers like were gushing about his route running and his blocking. And there's a role, I think, right away. I mean, I don't think Christian Kirk really has much left at all. So I think there is that Jawan Jennings role that he can kind of help fill, which they clearly expect him to do, right, with this pick. Damn near a first-round wide receiver here. His profile, like his analytical profile, is really weak. He's a fifth-round guy. But there is sort of a thing with the way I kind of view this stuff is like, once a guy doesn't have much going on, I'm kind of like, okay, he's not a good analytical prospect, but I don't want to get like super in the weeds on like, he's like way worse than this other not very good analytical prospect, you know, like he doesn't really like, it doesn't boost him, but he's still the 33rd overall pick and potentially slots in for immediate work. And I think has like his skills, if they translate, are real wide receiver skills. They're not just like gadgety stuff where he'd have a part-time role. So I do think there's full-time upside, at least for, you know, his rookie season, or sorry, his rookie deal. Is he a guy who gets a second contract? Probably not. But, you know, maybe there's a little juice here. And also, like, we're wrong about guys. You know, I would not have thought, I thought Rashee Rice was a terrible second-round pick by the Chiefs. That was pretty wrong. So sometimes I just want to go with the draft capital, especially since we're in a range now in this draft where I think you can kind of do like whatever you want as far as rookie drafts go. So I'm just going to follow the draft capital.
Rich, what does your model say on Stribling, since there is a vitriol non-consensus out there over him in rookie drafts?
Well, I brought this up, you know, with Theo to open the week, and then on my show with Harmon, and he was a guy who was getting a ton of steam the last month of the offseason. Dane Brugler brought him up on our show, had him as one of his top 7 sleepers in the entire draft of all positions. I had him, he looked very much like arbitrage Omar Cooper to me. And I asked Harmon, I said, Omar, what's the difference between Stribling and Omar Cooper? You've got 2 yak guys, don't have largely weaker analytical profiles. They're entering the NFL where they're going to be coveted because they're good after the catch and they're awesome in the run game. Like, both guys are really good blockers, and like they just fit like that McVay Shanahan system, right? And Harmon was like, nothing. They're like very much the same player. And then they end up going 3 picks apart.
Glad I drafted both of them today.
You did. And then
that has a type.
Daniel Jeremiah had him 62 overall at his 6. I genuinely think the 49ers, because a lot of people were surprised at the capital, I think that maybe there was some Shanahan hubris here. John Lynch hubris absolutely probably was involved here. But I genuinely don't think he was going to make it to 58. I genuinely don't believe with all the steam he was going to get to 58.
There was rumors that Tennessee, if they would have not taken Carnell Tate, they were going to take him with the 34th overall pick.
I think there was so much I think there was true fire to all the Stribling smoke. I think a lot of NFL teams thought he was a really good fit, and especially in this class, that he was always going to go higher than I think people, but he looks like it from a modeling perspective. But
I mean, Brugler had in the Beast, he had a second or third round grade on Stribling. And I really think that if like we had heard about Stribling more, like if I don't know, he had like crushed the Senior Bowl and then like just more publicly had a rise, that people wouldn't have any kind of outrage. Like why are we confident he's like worse than Jeremy Bernard or, you know, any
Right.
kind of these other guys? Like we're like past the point where any of these guys have really strong profiles.
And I think a lot of it is just the Shanahanigans, right? Like people are just factoring in the, you know, is he Jalen Hurd? Is he Ronnie Bell type stuff? But like, imagine me telling you that like a player was taken 33 overall on a roster where you've got a 33-year-old Mike Evans coming off the worst year of his career, who's been on the injury report for 5 years in a row with a hamstring injury. Mm-hmm. You've got Ricky Pearsall, who's in year 3, who hasn't been able to stay on the field and hasn't shown he's a target earner. You've got Christian Kirk. You've got George Kittle, 32, coming off an Achilles injury, and he's playing in a system fit. Like, you would be like, yeah, that sounds pretty interesting. But everyone's just like, this dude sucks. I'm tired of Kyle Shanahan. I'm out.
Yeah, but Deebo Samuel, like, because people... the draft history on the wide receiver position isn't even bad. Like, they got Deebo Samuel, who I would
Ayuk in this range.
Ayuk was in this range. So I also was like from my perspective, Deebo, like that's that's a little bit of a reach. Wasn't, right? I was wrong. Ayuk, wow, that was a little surprising. That actually worked out. Like they're not so. Pearsall was a huge reach, and I don't think will work out. But like,
and our guy Ryan McChrystal on our site, this is before he went to the 49ers, comped Stribling to Brandon Ayuk, was like one of his comps.
I would say, you know, the stuff I was talking about with the ability to earn yak after catching the ball downfield, that was something that really popped for Ayuk. Now Ayuk is, I think, a significantly better prospect, but still, like that is like why, you know, he's one of those guys, one of those examples of why that stuff's important. It's nice to be able to be a playmaker when you've already earned a target downfield, as opposed to having to get fed stuff underneath.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, Rich, you are also up next here in the second round.
Also, just one last thing. If you do play on Sleeper, Stribling is buried on Sleeper. Like in the ranks, like on the queue, like he is buried if you're in there. So like
it's Tyrion Davis Price Part 2, guys. Tyrion Davis Price was ranked like 700. You got to search for him. So there you go.
You got to find.
Yeah, what was up with that?
So 203.
Yeah, and I'm sticking to my guns here. About like same thing I opened on Theo's show to open the week. Like in this range, when we get to these wide receivers, I want to take shots in these tight ends. So I mean, I really love this player. I love the landing spot. I want Eli Raridan here. In this Notre Dame offense that was just so low volume, it kind of really capped a lot of stuff that popped for me underneath for him. I mean, he was 9th in target rate per route run in this class at tight ends. He was 4th in yards per team pass attempt. He forced a missed tackle on just under 20% of his receptions, which was 6th in this class. He led this class in receiving yards on throws 20 or more yards downfield, and he's playing with a quarterback that wants to push the rock, baby. Hunter Henry's in the final year of his contract. Austin Hooper is gone. They only brought in Julian Hill. Like, this guy can get on the field. He's good in the run game. He's an athlete. In these FFPC like style tight end premium leagues, man, like I am giddy to take Eli Raridan with a second round pick.
New England 19th in 12 personnel usage last year, but again, it's the way the NFL is going, as you mentioned and talked about in the earlier episode when you came on this show, Rich, about teams moving to more multi-tight end sets, getting rid of that third wide receiver. Kerrane, did you have thoughts?
Yeah, 9.46 RAS, 4.6 240 at 245 pounds, and he put up 59% of his total yardage last season on 20-plus yard targets. He had 48% of his career yards on 20-plus yard targets. He's pretty fun, like as an upside swing. He looks like someone who can, like in a tight end, I want guys who can either, it's not quite this simple, but I would really, I always love when I see a guy who can either be like a great yak producer or someone who can stretch the seam. Because there's not a ton of guys who are just like an insane target earners. Obviously, I'd be into that too. But Raridan does strike me as a guy who, like, he can be a kind of that guy who's like your deep threat from the slot at tight end, you know. And so there's like a reason to get him out on the field in his rookie season, and then a reason to be excited about him as an actual fantasy producer, not just kind of a check down guy. if he is a starter down the line.
With that being said, I am up next, and I'm also in between whether to get immediate points or sit on a player here. So I guess it depends on my roster. But for the sake of this argument, I'm just going to go with Jonah Coleman for the Broncos. We've seen this before. Sean Payton drafts Audric Estime. It's not nearly the same capital as RJ Harvey or Coleman, but 5th round, he gets rid of him the following year because he's unhappy with what he does. RJ Harvey was one of the least efficient running backs in the league last year. Sean Payton very clearly was trying to find any way to take him off the field, especially when J.K. Dobbins was healthy. Dobbins was brought back. Thus, it does make sense that Jonah Coleman could perhaps just overlap RJ Harvey now this year. So I'll go ahead and take that shot with Coleman. Kerrane, any thoughts here on Coleman?
This is who I would have taken as well. I think he could form a long-term tandem with Harvey and kind of be the Dobbins in that role. He's a big guy. He, can kind of be like potentially a battering ram type of rusher. He's not going to be a breakaway runner, so let's hope he can kind of break tackles. But he's also pretty good in the pass game. So there's some upside there too. And he probably has multiple ways that he can get on the field. When I wrote him up, I was like, there's a little bit of big Bucky Irving potential here. And now he sets up maybe as a bit of a Bucky Irving type of bet where it's like, there's a starter ahead of him. There's kind of 2 starters ahead of him, but maybe he's better than those guys. And he can potentially prove that over the course of his rookie season. So Coleman, I like a lot here. It's funny because we have 15 picks off the board. This is not a strong rookie class. And I thought maybe we'd be all over the map. The 15 rookies that I have ranked are all gone now. We have there's not a ton of at least from the way I have it ranked. I'm like, yep, this is exactly who I would take roughly in this order through 15 picks.
I was happy with the landing spot just for the sake of competition. Again, perhaps Jonah Coleman becomes just another guy that Sean Payton talks about and then ends up not using it all because he is going to ultimately use 3 running backs. But it's still, in my opinion, the profile and the resume is still better than what RJ Harvey had coming into the draft, given that just last year, Coleman was 2nd in yards per route run in this class, only behind Jeremiah Love. Also, you have like the gaudy resume and that Heisman finalist, Doak Walker winner, things like that. So I do like the spot quite a bit. Even though I know I'm just going to be pissed off about the pick in 3 months. But anyways, I believe it is now to...
Sean Payton will never let you down.
No, never. Never has, never will.
By the way, I can't count we're 16 picks in, but my point stands.
It is now to you, Theo.
Yes, I'm going to go Jeremy Bernard. I talked about him before, and I understand the Stribling and Coleman and Raritan. I think they're all really strong values early here in the 2nd round, reflective to this class. But Jeremy Bernard landed really, really well, gets the 2nd round draft capital. Pittsburgh has 2 28-year-old wide receivers. I believe DK Metcalf turns 29 this year. And Bernard's interesting. And in terms of landing spot, I don't think it gets any better for him when you look at like the history of like these power slots with Mike McCarthy. Talk about Randall Cobb, CeeDee Lamb. These sort of guys have gotten fast-tracked, and it's finding this mismatch in this McCarthy offense. I think they're going to be in 11 a ton this year. I think Bernard's going to be on the field a lot this year, and I think his 2027 outlook is going to be even better. There's also potential that he could be used on some of these manufactured touches. Alabama lined him up in the backfield. He's got some physicality to him, and I like him. I like the player, and I think that he definitely gets boosted by the landing spot here with Pittsburgh.
Jeremy Bernard, Kerrane, we are on you.
I will go with Ted Hurst. I've got a clump of guys like all together.
Yeah.
But he's in that clump. So Ted Hurst, I was a fan of pre-draft. I was hoping he would be a 2nd round pick. Falls to the 3rd. He's a bigger receiver, like 206 pounds. And he's a true downfield deep threat. Produced a ton of his yards on deep targets. He's kind of like an old school Rotovision, like target dominator, yardage dominator type of guy. He had 37% dominator rating in his junior season, and then 33% in his final season. You'd prefer that maybe he wasn't at Georgia State doing that. I'm kind of wondering like why he didn't transfer for his final season, but ultimately like where he was playing, he was the passing game, and he was doing it with 47% of his career yards at Georgia State on 20+ yard targets. So he does a thing. He gets open deep. He also he's a really good contested catch player, and he was a yak producer as well. He had 28% of his career yak on 20+ yard targets. He had 7 yak per game on 20+ yard targets. That's a pretty impressive number. So there's some upside here, and I like the landing spot where there's like one outside wide receiver that's like kind of built to be an outside wide receiver on the Bucs now, and it's Ted Hurst. It's like all slot receivers on the Bucs. Like Ibuka can play outside, but like he'd probably be best in the slot. McMillan, same deal. Tez Johnson certainly, is best in the slot. So he's interesting there as if he can deliver on this deep threat profile, being like the clear cut outside guy who basically like can he be Alec Pierce but on the Bucs has been the way I've been thinking about it.
I was looking for this landing spot too for any wide receiver, just because, like we talked about last year with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, Godwin's played 1 full season in his last 7 campaigns. Also is eyeing a $30 million club option with the Bucs in 2027, which they likely won't pick up. And so I do think there actually is a pathway to playing time. Theo, were you about to say something on Hurst?
No, I like the Alec Pierce for the Bucs one. I think that's really spot on. I think 2020 he's a 2027 bet, but a really, really fun one. I think he'll end up being a starter there. So I like that one, Pat. He would have been in the next few picks for me.
And Rich, I know pre-draft you were high on Hurst. Where do you stand now?
Yeah, I like him too. Like I said, there's paths for him to play. It looks crowded right now, but there's a lot of things that can open up. Godwin's probably not going to be on the roster next year. Jalen McMillan and Emeka Egbuka still have like no consistent like full seasons under their resume, although we're still like relatively high on Egbuka still too as well. So he can come in, I think, and compete. He's still got a capable quarterback. So I'm still high on Ted Hurst. He's also really good after the catch. Like he's awesome after the catch.
Yeah.
One of the things about him. And when you have these small school guys, and the difference between Ted Hurst and some guys in this class that had the NIL deals that they left on the table, Skylar Bell and Bryce Lance being the others, you typically have an older prospect, but he's the 7th youngest wide receiver in this class. Like typically, you hear a senior coming out of Georgia State, you're like, oh, this dude must be like 24, 25, but he is a young guy still too.
A couple different directions you can go at 207, Rich, but where are you leaning?
I guess I'll be a hypocrite and I'll take Chris Bell. I'd be considering Oscar Delp or maybe Max Clare here in this format, but I'll just take Chris Bell for old fantasy douche and Kerrane already used Rotovision, but this is like just give me this 6'2", 220-pound guy, put him on my team. I think he's probably Quincy Enunwa, like definitely probably Quincy Enunwa, because he's older. He's probably gonna have a slow start. Also, the Dolphins are completely doing the Packers thing with John Eric Sullivan and Nathaniel Hackett, where they're just gonna throw a bunch of receivers probably around on a low volume passing team, and probably doesn't hit the ground running. But again, just give me the 6'2", 220-pound guy, and that's where the analysis was.
Brian Edwards was a close comp.
Also, if you look that's actually where I nearly leaned with Jonah Coleman when I said maybe I just sit on points for 2027. That's how I feel about Chris Bell, is that whoever landed with the Browns, Jets, and Dolphins, we knew we were eyeing a lost year of development, but at least Chris Bell did have previously first round like potential before the injury, and so I can squint and see that picture for him in a wide open target tree.
And if you were following the draft too, because they took Caleb Douglas ahead of him. Caleb Douglas was another guy that was like, if you were following all the tea leaves, like he had a ton of visits with people, and you're like, man, the league really likes Caleb Douglas, and it ended up happening.
All right, well, I bit the bullet at the first second round turn with Ty Simpson in a Superflex format. I'm just going to do it again because for some odd reason, the third round quarterback from the Cardinals is going to get fantasy points before the number 13 overall pick. And so I'm going to suck it up and say we do not see a full season of Jacoby Brissett and Gardner Minshew, that Carson Beck unfortunately will play. And like last year, it's not the same thing. Nathaniel Hackett is not some offensive guru like Kellen Moore. But last year when I drafted Tyler Shough everywhere, I just squinted and said there's no competition. Perhaps something changes in the offense. We got there with Shough. Maybe Kerrane. Maybe. I doubt it. We get there with Beck.
I kind of was hoping I'd get Beck later. Like, you know, I don't. I was gonna consider him with my next pick. I'm not sure if I would have taken him or not. But I mean,
I have you talked about like a jumble of guys. I have him in this
he's
jumble of tier 5, 6. Yeah,
it's like a shame that this is a good pick, you know, but it is. I think, you know, he's
unfortunately.
Not only could he be the starter down the stretch, but like it's quite possible that he does end up being their starter next year. And you know, is that gonna work out? Probably not. But like, at some point, Davis Mills was a good pick, you know? You get a couple, you like farm a couple years of production for pretty cheap in Superflex. That's nice. So I think, and look, I mean, Beck does do, he like takes shots downfield. I don't think he has a great arm or anything, but he's not like mentally locked into like being a super conservative passer. Like maybe with like a well-schemed offense, he could actually be kind of interesting. I think Shough is a pretty apt comparison to where like the perception on him could really change over the course of the year. And certainly like, you know, whether or not you really believe in Shough going forward, you've turned a big profit from where you took him in rookie drafts a year ago.
I believe
the trade equity you're going to get with Carson Beck as well. Like Jacoby Brissett, we loved him for fantasy last year, but he was 111 as a starter. All the beat reporters think it's going to be Beck at some point, and it might be Beck by like week 6. So he might be out on the field very, very early. And in terms of like an offensive ecosystem he's stepping into, skill position talent around him's upper level for rookie quarterbacks we've seen over the years with Trey McBride and Jeremiah Love, and then Wilson and Harrison Jr. at wideout. So like, I get it. It feels like a gross pick, but I think he's one of the guys that we've taken in the last 6-7 picks that could gain a ton of value. The other guys have a ton of red flags. So quarterback equity in Superflex leagues, there's only so few of them. So got to take your shots on Beck. And I think this draft is reflective that you can't wait till the 212. Even if you have them ranked there, you're probably looking at that mid-second in a lot of leagues.
And Theo, we are back to you with the 209.
Yeah, so this one, I've been sort of caping up for Zachariah Branch. I think Oscar Delp is also a really good value here, but I'll go and make my Branch case here. I think he landed about as well as he could have. There's some parallels to Tank Dell when Tank Dell was a rookie in terms of a hometown player gets drafted by the local NFL team. Tank Dell goes from Houston to Houston. Zachariah Branch goes from Georgia to Atlanta. And in terms of the teammate target competition for the wide receiver 2 job, it's wide open for him. He's got to beat out guys like Jahan Dotson, Olamide Zacchaeus to get on the field a lot. And I understand that he's a screen merchant. I understand he's a low ADOT guy, but he also set the record for the most receptions in Georgia history, led the SEC with 81 receptions. We all like Oscar Delp in this range, but Oscar Delp had fewer than 25 catches. Zachariah Branch had 81 of them. So he's commanded targets and commanded touches for a long time. He put on a show at the NFL Combine for a smaller wide receiver. Also hit like 20-plus reps on the bench press at that weight and that size. And I think he steps into a situation where the top 3 guys are as clear as any team in the NFL right now. But I think he has an opportunity to clear out a role. And then if you look at the quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa is a check-down screen merchant himself. So Branch landed really well. I'll take some shots on him in this range, and I think he's very polarizing, but I think when you get to the late second, I think you pull the trigger.
Zachariah Branch, Kerrane, as you were on the clock.
We're in the jumble. Branch certainly in that jumble. There's another receiver I kind of have in the jumble too, but Rich kind of convinced me actually with his argument to take shots on tight end, and I'm going to take Max Clare, who's the tight end that I have right here with this big group. We know that the Rams keep kind of building out additional tight end bets, and last year it was just kind of this, I mean, talk about a jumble. They were kind of playing all these guys. I guess like Colby Parkinson was kind of like the main guy sort of down the stretch once Higbee got hurt, but it's going to be ugly, I think, this year in terms of the playing time, the rotation. And they also have Ferguson, who they spent a second round pick on that could emerge as their long-term starter. But Claire's kind of interesting as like a Brenton Strange type of guy who like emerges as like a starter in year 2, maybe. And we know that this team wants to use the tight ends. They're planning for, the post Stafford future, which I think is probably good for, like McVay sticking around and everything. So if I have the potential to get like a starter on the Rams, probably in 2027 plus, I think that's worth taking a stab on here in the late second.
That also then leaves this trend to continue with you, Rich, at the next pick.
Yeah, I mean, I consider Delp at the last pick, so I would just take him here. Taking shots in these tight end premiums, trying to have something stick, believing in Kellen Moore, kind of what they're building with the Saints. A player that probably was underused, played injured too, his last year at Georgia. But a good athlete, good 3-down, plays in line. He flex out and play Y too. So that's really it, is just taking shots on these tight ends. And then when we come back around, I'll probably take another one.
All right, well, just for the sake of conversation, I'll break the tight end streak here because there are 2 other running backs behind Love and Price, behind the first round guys that I believe can play 3, I should say, can play themselves into an opportunity in 2026. Jonah Coleman's one. Nicholas Singleton is the second of the third, if only because this offseason we have already seen the rumors that Tony Pollard could be cut. It's a new regime and offensive coordinator entirely that are not tied to Pollard or Tajay Spears. And they did pick Singleton, who was the pass-catching back at Penn State. So at least I think he can work his way into third down and perhaps earn more after that. So Singleton to end the second round here, Theo.
Yeah, Singleton would have been my pick, and there's been a strong history with Brian Daigle and day 3 backs when it comes to Cam Scatterbo, Tyrone Tracy back-to-back seasons. And then you go back to his Buffalo days. Devin Singletary was a third-round pick who probably could have been a day 3 pick and ended up hitting pretty well. So I like that pick. This one's a little bit interesting. I think if we're going to go with the tight ends, I think you could make a Justin Jolie argument. I'll go with another potential like innings eater at the running back position. It's the third round. It's an ugly class. I hate taking this like a 6th round pick, but Katron Allen has potential to be this year's Kyle Monangai. It's not a huge leap to think that he could earn out a few starts with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt and Rachaad White. So feels super ugly to take a 6th rounder here. But that's where we're at with this class. I'll take my shots on specifically getting points in 2026, and I think Allen has a chance to do that.
Katron Allen amid that logjam of Washington running backs, Kerrane.
Yeah, I mean, we are in a point where I'd say like your format is really, really going to drive stuff. Like there's, like if you're in a league like FFP PC style, like Singleton and Allen are probably like gone 6 picks ago, and in deeper leagues, I think some of these like tight ends and receivers have like Zachary Branch. I think like the deeper your league goes, the more valuable it is to like find a useful flex. That really matters. So these picks are really going to be determined by that in a lot of ways. I'll take Chris Brazzell here, who I want it to be a deep league. If I'm taking him, like he's not someone, I think in FFPC, like the point, I forget who made it now, but Chris Brazzell being on waivers a couple years from now is like, that seems pretty likely. But he's an interesting downfield receiver that I think can be an NFL starter, maybe by the end of his rookie year in this situation. Investing in the Panthers offense isn't like my favorite thing, but we could see Bryce Young be replaced in a year or two, which I would be kind of into for the purposes of a deep threat. So I thought I was a fan of Brazzell before the draft with an interesting downfield skill set, and I think there's still some upside for him to to be the Tennessee wide receiver where it actually works.
And Rich, that means that Justin Jolie and other options are available for you here to take over the bums that I'm going to pick.
Yeah, I would take Jolie here. Pretty decent landing spot for him here with Evan Ingram being 32 in the last year of his contract, also not really doing anything last year, but just get a year under his belt. Had more yards than Casey Concepcion in 2024 on the same roster. This is a guy that has really good hands, just one drop in his career, a high target rate too. So yeah, again, just to kind of stick into my the way if I'm playing these tight end premium leagues, I'm just using a lot of bites of the apple on this group of guys over these ancillary wide receivers largely.
Don't blame you at all. They are also Superflex leagues, but I don't think I'm going to pull the Drew Aller or Taylon Green trigger just yet, although this is the range. I'll still go one more wasted pick on Emmett Johnson. If anything, it was a receiving profile. We know they already were skeptical of using Brashad Smith in that role last year, so perhaps Emmett Johnson can carve out that role and play with the Chiefs this season. That's my only argument for it, Theo.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. You're taking a handcuff running back in a very good offense, so he's got value. If Kenneth Walker misses time, I think Emmett Johnson would be a valuable player to have on your roster. And I think leaning into structure matters. I think that when we're taking appealing handcuffs or getting your own handcuff in Dynasty, I think that matters. It's an easy decision whether you use them or not. The starter's out, you put him right in. And I'll do the same thing. I'll take Mike Washington, who I think we were a little bit more hopeful would go higher, to a different team, but he ends up in the 4th round. So the draft capital was not day 2, and the landing spot was horrific. But I think if you're an Ashton Genty manager, you should prioritize this one. I think Mike Washington would be the clear handcuff there. And if Genty misses time, I think he'd have a very valuable role in a Clint Kubiak offense. We're struggling here, guys, but I'll go back with the guy that I think is a clear handcuff at this point.
I know, Kerrane, you were high on Mike Washington, believing the athleticism would get him the capital because that has actually been sticky. It's been historically proven. An athlete at running back position in particular will then get high draft capital, but that did not happen. Where do you sit on Mike Washington now?
So I was actually pretty low on Mike Washington before he crushed the combine. And then I kind of got, once post-combine, there was enough buzz where I was like, oh, I might be missing the boat here. This guy might be a 2nd-round pick. Maybe the Seahawks don't take Jadarian Price at the end of the 1st and they grab Mike Washington in the 2nd. I think the fact that he fell to the 4th round with this level of athleticism is super bearish. I think that Jonah Coleman, Jacob Sanderson was making this point yesterday on Ship Chasing. When you look at Jonah Coleman and Katron Allen, they're very specific and kind of low upside real life bets. You kind of know NFL teams understand that these guys aren't going to be breakaway, explosive, superstar type of guys, but they can maybe be lunch pail guys. Well, that's kind of what round 4 and day 3 is for. But Mike Washington, elite athletes, they fall there when there's major question marks about their ability to actually play football. And if you look at his stats, there are major question marks about his ability to actually play football. So I think is a handcuff type of guy, who else is there? He probably would be the guy behind Genty, but I think he's kind of a low floor, low upside pick in all honesty at this point. The day 3 stuff really changes my perspective on him.
Kerrane, you were back on the clock.
Do I have 2 more picks left?
2 more picks, yes.
Okay, all right. I'll take Elijah Surratt. Surratt's almost certainly nothing, but if he is something, I think he's a power slot target earner, and he's as an outside guy, there's major kind of separation concerns, and he's one of these kind of contested catch bully ball guys who can't actually do that at the NFL level, I think. But I think he is actually a little bit interesting if they kick him inside here. And in the new offensive system, I think that might be the plan. So, basically, if you think of him as almost the new Isaiah Likely, then I think he's kind of intriguing. So I'm hoping that that's what he is. I really have no way of knowing if that's the plan or not, but I like him a little bit more than Jacoby Lane, who they took earlier. Not a ton more, but I think if they use Surratt inside, he has a bit more upside.
You have him in the same tier as Jacoby Lane.
I have him,
and probably like Zachariah Branch, right? And Chris Brazil, those guys.
All those guys, and Surratt literally have one spot ahead of Lane in the overall ranks. They're all smashed together here.
Well, Rich, as we move on to your next pick, Kalen Black is on the board. If, like the 49ers, you'd also like to waste a selection.
How amazing is it that Kalen Black was the only running back taken at day 2 in this class?
By Kyle Shanahan.
Incredible.
We should have guessed it.
I've been on this spot in similar formats that aren't tight end premium, and I've just taken Drew Aller here. I don't listen. It could be a stone cold zero. But there's also a chance Drew Aller is the only guy outside of Mendoza actually starting in this class next year, like depending what Matthew Stafford does. So I think at this spot, like you just throw that quarterback dart and see what happens. That's it. That's the analysis. I have no stump case for Drew Aller. They could be starting next year.
I mean, if you're making that case for Drew Aller, just imagine the case I'm about to make for Taylon Green, who at least all I could say
he could start this year
is that we've seen Deshaun Watson and Shadur Sanders play professional football, so there's clearly a path to start in Cleveland. It is similar to Kellen Moore's outlook last year. It's a coach I trust in Todd Monken, who I believe is an offensive genius, and more importantly, although Taylon Green can't throw the ball, he averaged 45 rushing yards per game in college. So I'll take the most athletic quarterback literally in combine history and just say maybe there's a way he gets on the field in 2026 or 2027. As Theo, we move to you.
Yeah, so we're at the bottom of the barrel here, and I've taken running backs back to back, so I want to pivot a little bit and get away from that one. I'm going to go Malachi Fields because I think he's going to be the number 2 wide receiver in New York sooner than later. Darius Slayton is 29. Obviously, Malik Neighbors is a mega target earner, and I think Isaiah Likely will be highly utilized, but Fields will be a starting wide receiver in the NFL. Not that fast, but he's huge, and I think he's going to carve out a role here. And I think we'll see him a lot early on, depending on whether or not Malik Neighbors can get back, and he avoids the pup. But I think the way things are trending, Malik Neighbors might miss some time to start out the year. So I think Fields will get some early time as well.
Kerrane, your final pick at 310.
Yeah, my final pick, I'm going to have a little fun here. And honestly, I have this guy ranked like right around this spot. So it's not really even a reach by my rookie ranks. But, you guys taking Drew Aller and Taylon Green, and, they have paths of playing time by the end of this year. Cole Payton doesn't, but I think he maybe could be the starter for the Eagles at some point. The Hurts, it's not like the Hurts experience is kind of getting shaky now. He's signed through next year. They could get out after next year. And Peyton, I think, is very much a kind of a developmental type of guy, but he went 5th round, and that's like, I thought maybe he'd be 6th or 7th. So that was like mildly bullish. And then when you look at his profile, I mean, it's kind of Taylon Green-esque, where this is, you're betting on the rushing production. He has a 9.86 RAS. He's 232 pounds, 4.5, 640. Big-time runner, an incredibly willing runner. He scrambled on 10.8% of his clean dropbacks. Tyrod Taylor at 12.3% is the only guy I have with a higher rate. The only other quarterbacks above 9 were Cam Miller, his former teammate, Jaden Daniels, and Jalen Hurts. So he's out there like trying to use his legs, and he really can run the ball with that athleticism. And he was also like chucking the ball downfield constantly. He had an ADOT from a clean pocket of 11.4, which is the 3rd highest I have. Tyrod Taylor 11.7, Bryce Petty 11.6, but then the 5 quarterbacks directly behind him are Anthony Richardson, Justin Fields, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Cam Newton. Just like big game hunting, right? In the frame of big game hunting, is he Anthony Richardson or Fields? Probably, but like give me a couple years for him to learn behind Jalen Hurts and then potentially take over. I I know it's like a low probability bet, but God, if he actually became a starter, like he would be an incredibly fantasy friendly guy and someone I think we would immediately become really, really excited about. So, yeah, it's got to be a deep enough league for you to hold him for a couple years. Obviously, Superflex as well, but some of these Superflex leagues do have enough roster spots where that's a viable path, and the upside makes it worth it if you can see, reserve a roster spot for a couple years for him.
Outside of Superflex leagues, Rich, where are you taking your shots here at the back of the third round? Because I think a lot of people will probably have questions of what to do with these picks. Or are you suggesting still tight ends is the way to go?
Yeah, I was going to be consistent, so I'll take one more tight end. There's actually 2 more tight ends I'm actually still interested too.
Let's hear them.
Formats. Matthew Hibner from the Ravens went in the 4th round. When RJ Maryland went down last year, he basically split time with RJ Maryland at SMU, but when he went down, this is an explosive player, a really good athlete. Mark Andrews is 31 at the start of the season. And Mark Andrews' playing time has significantly dropped 3 seasons in a row. So, I like him. And I like Jack Endries, too, as a late dart, too. Jack Endries was Fernando Mendoza's leading receiver at Cal 2 years ago, landing with Joe Burrow. But the way I'm playing these late round picks is just trying to get offensive attachment and trying to luck box into something. That's really it. Like, if you like Skylar, like guys like Skylar Bell, Cyrus Allen, dudes like that, I'm literally just trying to buy offensive attachment and just trying to get lucky in this range. That's it. That's where I'm not going to like cape and say like in the 3rd and 4th round of this class, like I've got like some diamonds for you. That's just how I'm playing it.
I completely agree. So in this case, just for the sake of the draft, let's give you Raritan. Although
give me Hibner, the consistency.
And then Skylar Bell was going to be my pick. Again, just saying we don't know what the offense is going to do. We know they are unhappy with their current wide receivers outside of DJ Moore. So perhaps he finds a path in with the Bills. Theo, I'm going to go around the table here, but I'm going to start with you. Anyone else you'd like to shout out for late darts or jam up here in the back of the 3rd round?
Yeah, so I think Caleb Douglas is interesting. We've talked about Chris Bell, but if he has trouble getting back on the field or regression of injury, Caleb Douglas's skill set might match up well with what they're doing over there, and they'll take some deep shots on him. I also think Adam Randall, if we're chasing like kind of cool handcuff guys, he can end up being the handcuff back in Baltimore. And then the other one that we didn't take, Damon Claiborne, Minnesota. A little bit of Keaton Mitchell rookie year vibes if he can sort of overcome Jordan Mason, Aaron Jones, at least have some utility this year. Small, fast running back on what could be a decent offense.
Kerrane?
I mean, I would say Jacoby Lane, I think, is totally fine in this general range. Another guy kind of having that mash of guys.
I probably should have took Jacoby Lane, honestly, but the way they talked about him after the draft was scary in that they basically called him a special teams player and that they were going to take their time with him. Like literally a special teams player.
Don't love that. I also think like as far as the tight ends, the Jags took 2 of them, and I think that I actually prefer the guy they took second, Koziel, to Borkature, but I think those guys are at least worth considering late as well. But the guy would say, hey, check your particular league and see if Eli Heidenreich is a running back, because if he is, I think he's kind of intriguing as you get into this 3rd, 4th round range, late 3rd, early 4th type of range. He's kind of like the Cole Payton thing, but at running back, where like he's almost certainly nothing, but if he is something, like he's a pretty intriguing guy who can catch the ball and potentially run the ball as well. He's probably a little bit blocked for now in Pittsburgh, but like a year or 2 from now, I don't think Jalen Warren and Rico Dowdle, like in retrospect, are going to seem like a huge block. So he's an intriguing dart throw.
I always laugh when his name comes up because he's the universal favorite at 312. Like everyone always talks about. What about Eli Heidenreich? Since Aaron Rodgers targeted his backfield at a league high rate last year because he's terrified of getting hit. So
you got to check though, because he's not always listed as a running back. So
and
receiver,
Rich,
I'm not interested.
Same question to you.
Yeah, I brought up a couple of the guys. I will say, listen, I know we've done the Chiefs thing for a while, but I mean, Cyrus Allen does one thing that none of the Chiefs guys do, and the dude wins downfield. So like, I think he's got to be on your radar. He was unanimously voted the best route runner at the Senior Bowl.
No.
He checked out as an athlete, not much production on his profile, bounced around 3 schools, but outperformed Jeff Caldwell, who was another workout warrior at the combine. But this guy wins and separates downfield, and that the Chiefs don't have a guy like this on the roster. They tried to do it with Tyquan Thornton, who's also back this year, but I don't know. Like, who amongst us doesn't want to throw a dart at the Chiefs guy for the 17th straight year?
I could see us playing him in DFS at least once this year, at the very least.
I can't wait to hitch a wagon to Cyrus Allen.
He better be 4K minimum.
Yeah,
With that being said,
we played Kyle Williams last year.
We played Tyquan Thornton at 4K as well.
Oh, we did play Tyquan Thornton.
With that being said, Kerrane, I know you're busy with both rookie drafts and best ball drafts over at Legendary Upside. Tell everyone else what you have going on there.
Yeah, best ball rankings, DraftKings, Underdog. I've got dynamic rankings as well. Check that out, legendaryupside.com/sidekick. I've got Dynasty rankings that I just updated last night, the full 250, and then rookie rankings as well. Going to try to get some thoughts out on kind of winners and losers from the draft in written form. Been doing a ton of podcasts on the Leg Up feed and on the Ship Chasing feed, so you can check those out as well. Appreciate you guys having me on, and this has been a ton of fun.
Rich, what has come out recently at Sharp Football?
I mean, like everyone else here, post-draft, mop-up, all these guys are in rankings, rookie rankings. I've got everyone in projections right now, so you can check out the full season projections. I've got all the rankings for tight end, premium, Superflex, top 250s across those. I'll be working on the book for the next month, and then we'll come back and hit the ground running for the 2026 season.
And Theo, what do you have going on at Fantasy Points for the next couple weeks?
Yeah, so put out a ton of content post NFL draft. You can find it over at Fantasy Points YouTube and Fantasy Points Dynasty YouTube. Over on the site, you can find my rookie rankings. Also dropping a rookie rankings article, adding some context to each of these picks, and just doing a bunch more shows throughout the week. So yeah, this was a lot of fun, guys. Really fun chopping it up.
And of course, the best ball package at Establish the Run just launched, $60 for all year long. And not only a data science team backing the projections up, but also we get into arguments to fudge the projections, like the most recent one. Should you draft Gunnar Helm over Michael Mayer? And I checked out afterwards. Like, guys, I got some things to do beyond this. So with that being said, thanks to everyone for joining. The next time you see us, it'll probably be Leone and Ben Gretsch doing their season-long projection series, which we've all come to love and enjoy. So until then, good luck in your rookie drafts. Remember, be a little bit kinder than what's required. We'll see you next time.